lovely colours, juicy ones in week number 3. Coloricombo week number 3. Cool pink candy apple, cantaloupe, and cornflower. So I'm going to mix up these colours. I'll show you. I'm using watercolour and I'm mixing it here on a disposable paper palette. I can use up all the watercolour that I mix. And I mix the first pink colour using magenta and then a little bit of alizarin crimson to get that deep pink. When it's just magenta and white, it can be a bit like a bubblegum pink, and the red, either the pyrrole or alizarin crimson that I'm using here, will make it a bit more juicy. And then I'm adding a little bit, I've just dabbed it a little bit into ultramarine blue watercolor, and that cools it down again. And that all put together give it a bit of a richness, make it a bit more complex. But it's a very clean color, clean, cool pink. And I'm going to use that with pyrrole red, and that's pyrrole red and alizarin crimson to mix the candy apple. Probably don't really need the yellow for that. I'll use that for the cantaloupe because I want this to be just a deep, luscious red, very juicy red. So for cantaloupe, I'm going to use the nickel as a yellow, and I'm mixing it with a little batch, clean batch of white Horadam gouache. That's titanium gouache. So I've got magenta and that white mix and a bit of the pyrrole red, and it mixes to this lovely thick opaque peach color. And a little bit more magenta. A bit more yellow, so I have a quantity of paint that I can work with, because I'm going to also create a little house themed painting linked to this theme, to these colors. I'm adding ultramarine blue to magenta to create this blue cornflower color. So you see it's a very pure blue color. Ultramarine and a bit of alizarin crimson, and I get that purple color, a very deep fresh purple color. It's a bit too red there, need a bit more blue. I need a little bit more blue, ultramarine blue, mixing that in so I have a quantity of paint. There's my purple. It's a cornflower blue color. I need a bit more ultramarine blue. Just playing around, mixing it up a bit more. And that's the real joy of mixing colors. And then you can try it out. It's on a small scale. You figure it out with your eye as you mix it and as it dries, to get the color to be the correct color you want it to be. There's a cantaloupe. So, and then I write it down in a little, got a small watercolor book, and I write down how I've mixed the colors to get there, like a little recipe book, because it's very quick to forget. It's very easy to forget what you've mixed. It's good to have it as a record. I'm doing something very simple. For Coloricombo 2024, I have decided to use a house shape as my muse, or the basic shape, the archetypal shape that I'm using, linked to Coloricombo, to the color prompts. And I've cut out a cardboard template, and the template blocks off. So first I filled it in with the Cantaloupe color, and now I'm blocking off the area and painting with the Cornflower, this Cornflower purple blue color, the back, just making patterns, little doodles, doing it on a very small scale, a small piece of paper. It's like a color test, but a bit more evolved into a little painting. So I've got the areas blocked off there, and now I'm tidying it up. And once I've tidied it up and got it linked up to the Cantaloupe house shape color, I'm filling inside with pink marks, and I'm blocking off the outside because I want my eye to focus on what I'm doing. And I find it sometimes it's really helpful if you have too much going on that can distract your eye, to block off an area so you focus just on that. And then it's a bit of a surprise to see how the two fit together, because sometimes you can overthink or you can compromise too much with what's going on the outside. And sometimes when you block the inside area off from the outside, it's quite interesting to see when the two fit together and how you have this foreground and a background. So they've got that bright pink, cool pink color, and I am now adding candy apple red marks on it, adding more detail. And this really is something that I can do more of, or keep it really limited depending on my time. I'm treating it as a colorful doodle and layering the colors on top of one another. So I'm using watercolor, it's core watercolor, and I'm mixing it with Horadam gouache to create effectively water-based gouache and a water-soluble gouache. So it is a color that can dissolve, but I'm painting it very lightly, the colors on top of one another, so it doesn't dissolve, and the colors stay clear. It's all to do with how much water is in your mixture and how much effectively rubbing happens when the paintbrush is applied over the paint that's already dried. Now this color that I'm adding is a deep blue, it's like an indigo blue, and I'm painting this as my contrasting color. And with Coloricombo, how it works, you get the colors, the prompt of the week, and then if you wish you can just use those colors, and you can also add a darker contrasting color as I'm doing here, this deep blue. And if you want to, you can create another or use another neutral color such as gray, a soft sage, soft gray color, buff color, an off-white buff color, light blue, something that doesn't distract too much from the colors that you're using in the prompt, unless of course you absolutely want to, you come to some kind of a epiphany and feel you have to use a specific color. It's your own choice. It's a catalyst. The Coloricombo is a catalyst for creativity, and it's about using the limitations of color, but then allowing that to lead the process and to see where you go. I'm painting the dark blue on top of the Cornflower color, the purple blue color, and I'm defining the shapes and adding detail and making the shapes tidier and giving it a perfect edge, blocking in the color. I'm using a number 10 ultra round brush, and it has a very fine point. It's a Silver Silk 88 ultra round brush, and I like using a bigger brush rather than a finicky small brush, especially if it's one with a sharp point, because you can just apply more paint. It's a bit faster painting rather than having a very small brush. You still have the detail, but you can still achieve detail with the fine tip of it. It's a synthetic brush. I don't really use natural hair brushes, especially not squirrel hair or sable, for different reasons, apart from the obvious that it's derived from animals. Synthetic brushes have evolved a lot in the last few decades, and I find that this fine synthetic brush is useful for both acrylic and watercolor, so it's a more practical solution as well. I'll do a bit more, I'll go into more detail about that in a different demo at a different time. So here I'm defining the shapes a little bit and turning them into something happening in the background of the main attraction, the house shape, but making the two blend together, having two patterns, a front and a back pattern, with the dark blue as the paint that adds the detail, that creates the detail. It's easier to paint in a dark blue with dark color on top of a light color, always the case in watercolor and often the case in gouache. It's just an easier way to do it rather than to paint the light color on top of the dark, unless it's a very opaque white, which I will be using as well shortly. No real right or wrong, it's just an easier way to do it. So yeah, I'm adding detail and getting a little bit, faffing around a little bit, and maybe I shouldn't have actually blocked that off, but it's all part of playing and exploring. And just having that time to engage with color. And it's really good, especially if it's a color you wouldn't normally choose. If it's not a go-to color, then it's good to force yourself a little bit, nudge yourself out of your comfort zone and play with colors that are just opening up a new possibility of creating. Here I'm using the Horodam white gouache, just dissolving it with a bit of water so it's quite opaque, quite strong, adding a bit of detail, adding the white detail to it. I don't really think it needed it. I think it worked better without it, but I'm just also exploring possibilities of what can be achieved when you add the white detail on top of these very strong bright colors. But I think it actually worked better without it. I'm filling in some more red on top of these little white blobs and the details. And there I finish my painting. There you have my house shape with a bit of psychedelic color patterning going on around it. That's my color exercise for this week. Coloricombo comes out once a week. You can subscribe on Substack, find Coloricombo there. You can see some of my older demos on Instagram as well. Make time for art. Enjoy.